Meghan Moore.
Hello? Yeah. Okay. I'm loud, so I probably don't even need this. I guess this is very fitting, belated International Women's Day. So yes, as you guys heard, I oversee all of the paid media strategy and activation at Sony Corporation of America, which is where we have the privilege of trying to bring the world of Sony together for consumers to convey a brand message, which is a fun challenge. But we'll start with just basically letting you guys introduce yourselves and what you do, and really also how you came into working in the advanced TV space.
Sure. My name is Meghan Grienenberger. I'm from VSA Partners. I lead our media discipline department. And VSA Partners is a design-led company where we really think about design across all disciplines. So the way that I got into advanced TV, I've been in the media world for about 15 plus years. And the way we entered it was actually in 2016. We were the AOR for a cat litter brand, and in 2015 we did all the planning, right? Did all the upfronts, had our multi-million-dollar plan. Already in 2016 it got rolling, and then we got that inevitable call in April that said, hey, we have new sales goals in our tier 1 markets, and we need to be on the air by next week. It's quite a challenge. So that's where we really ended up within TV automated buying plus addressable television. So the automated buying allowed us to just focus on those tier 1 DMAs by going through one provider. And then the addressable television was using IRI data, targeting households that had purchased cat litter in the past 30 days. And at that time, people were still calling programmatic TV. They have hence switched it to advanced because it simply isn't purchased the same way as programmatic digital, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit.
Trisha Stecker. I am the digital media director at R&R Partners. You likely know our famous tagline, "What happens here stays here," for Las Vegas. I also lead our programmatic team in-house. We have programmatic for search, social, as well as our in-house DSP, which is the trade desk. How I got into, I call it CTV. We all have our different acronyms. So it was back, I was a media planner for NBC, but I was a digital media planner for NBC. And we had to promote Bravo, CNBC shows, and of course, TV is a huge push, but then digitally, how do you extend it? And CTV was just this like weird wedge, and no one knew what to do with it. No one knew what the behavior was. So that's where more of the digital partners came into the space, such as Yumi was one of the first. So we took all of our TV spots and ran it across CTV back in 2012. The industry really didn't advance for a couple years, and then I'd say the last 2 years is when things have really started changing, and our agency has been testing different targeting, different tactics, and right now we're going into our new fiscal year planning, and there's so many new planning tools out there that whether it's, we'll talk about this later too, of the different types of buying standards you can do, but right now we're seeing it as an extension of television for video distribution.
Good morning. My name is Tran, and I'm the Chief Media Officer and Associate Partner at Proof Advertising. Proof is an independent agency based here in Austin, represent. We basically have been, we kind of refer to advanced TV in different ways. I'm sure we'll talk about that too. But in 2016, really started to look at it as a media mix solution for our clients. In particular, for Subway restaurants, we're the largest local agency in the system. We work really hand in hand with the national agency, which has shifted. But back in 2016, we really were trying to figure out what national was doing from a TV, online video perspective, and then how we layered in local TV or advanced TV to kind of move the needle. So I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but it was an interesting kind of test on how we look at something, again, nationwide, and how do we elevate levers in local markets.
So this is thank you for the, kind of intros and how you kind of first stepped foot into this space. I think, interestingly enough, each of you, your responses and the way that you even address the space, takes us really well into the next question. And, how do you explain it to a lot of people? I got an email the other day about some article and a new company that's coming into the advanced TV space and allowing people-based marketing in, advanced TV. And I got an email from my senior manager and was like, wait, are we doing this already or are we not? Like, is this connected? Is this programmatic? Like, what is this? And so, I had to take a step back myself and be like, okay, yes, we're doing this, we're doing that. But how do you guys kind of explain the space? And Meghan, could you talk a little bit more about how you see the ecosystem right now and how to best explain it to people who are new to it?
Sure. So I'll use an example. Last year, we had a advertiser that was new to the industry, a e-commerce retailer. And we were charged to, a dual objective really, to build brand awareness for a retail e-commerce advertiser that no one has heard about when we're up against large companies like Overstock or Wayfair. And they had 3 target audiences. They had millennials, moms, and empty nesters. So right there, we knew that we had to develop a media mix that matched the media consumption patterns of those very different audiences. And that's really where advanced television, addressable, VOD, CTV, addressable, doesn't have an acronym, so we gotta work on that. And we use all those different video pipes pretty much to reach our target audience. And the way that we tailored it was developing different ad links that match the attention span of each one of those groups. So addressable, the way that we explained that there is, serving ads to specific households that we know match the demo and the qualitative data against it. OTT, we love to use device IDs to ensure we're reaching the right places. And then with VOD, similarly, we know who that household is. And then with programmatic or, national or local linear TV that's purchased programmatic, we kind of use that as casting a wide net. By using qualitative data, but we learned some things about that that we'll talk about later.
Okay, cool. And I think one thing that we kind of had a prep call before the panel, and you guys each have very interesting, just to kind of go deeper into what the different facets of the ecosystem are, how they can work together, how they serve different purposes. Trisha, can you tell us a little bit about a particular kind of use case that you shared with us previously for one of your clients?
Yeah, so I would say one way is we look to just increase scale. So right now, CTV, so while Meghan does more addressable TV and programmatic TV, I really concentrate on the OTT space, which the OTT space has its own fragmentation. You've got your Roku devices, you've got your hockey pucks, which are Apple TV. Then you've got the sticks, you've got the Chromecast and Amazon Fire, and then you also have smart TVs, which are the internet-enabled television. So that whole space, you have to also understand, what type of person owns a smart TV versus has the sticks. The stick is only $30, where, a smart TV is a couple $100. And, there's maybe certain devices you want to deliver on, and then within those devices, you get different ad inventory. Roku, you can do whole homepage takeovers. Smart TVs, they're now reading what you're watching, and you would be able to know that they watched one TV show. So we approach it in the sense of, one is scale for our TV spot. If we're targeting different generations, so Gen Z, who are the first time they're cord nevers. The first time we were getting into the space, it was the cord frayers. And then it was the cord cutters, which are the millennials, and then cord nevers, who they never had cable, which blows my mind personally. And then with that, so if we are trying to increase frequency, we might look to one audience of what are we buying from our TV schedule. If we're buying ABC, well, then we'll look to Hulu and maybe we'll buy more inventory that matches that to extend that scale. But if they're cord nevers, well, then they never saw our TV spot, so we need to make sure that we're increasing our buy to Gen Z. And that's where it's also looking at contextual environment, and that's when we lean on our DSP to be able to cherry pick different inventory. And then we also will do direct partnerships. So we partnered with Sony Crackle a couple years ago, and we knew that our audience were music enthusiasts. So with Sony Crackle, they did something that was called Playing It Forward, and we had an Imagine Dragons pop-up acoustic concert in front of Bellagio fountains, and we only aired it on CTV because we knew that that's where our target audience was, and we really wanted to own that space and get in there. We want to be the first movers into space, and that's when you also learn. You learn what works, what doesn't work. So yeah, we see it in not just an extension of TV, but then how does one environment resonate with someone over another? The data shows that people are receptive to ads right now within the CTV space. They understand that you have to watch the ad to be able to get your content for free. I think one area the industry needs to improve on is not making it a forced view. I think we can get a lot more learnings by not having them force to watch views, because right now our video completion rates are 95%, but that doesn't tell us too much because they didn't have a choice. So I would say, like, with everything that's happening in the social space, that we know that 4-second videos, 6-second videos on YouTube is where it's at, then I think we need to start applying our digital learnings into the internet-enabled TVs. Long-winded.
No, that's awesome. I mean, there's a lot to consider, and I think that's a good use case, because you did have to kind of like break it down so much, and there was so many different details and a lot of things that had to go into which particular area and who you're targeting. And I think that is an interesting point when you talked about the how you are figuring out who to target in those spaces. The cord variety, I didn't even know about that. I mean, I knew about cord cutters because that's obviously one that's a little more universal. I don't even know where I sit. I just watch a lot of TV, but that's interesting. So Lee, and that's how you say it, right? Lee, can you tell us a little about how you, in your use case for one of your clients, particularly how you guys kind of uncovered and looked into targeting, and which particular channels in this space were best for the messaging and the objectives?
I'll go back to the subway example because I think it is somewhat unique, and we actually applied tracking, which helped us to really determine what this whole interplay between, again, a national sort of big overlay and then local hyper plus up. So from our perspective, we looked at Foursquare attribution to really take a look at how we move the needle for in-store traffic to Subway restaurants. And what was interesting is, the broad national targeting was pretty much, adults 18 to 49. In the QSR war, everyone wants to have that top of mind mental file on, their products and their promotion. So really, it's about saturation, bludgeoning the consumer with your messaging. And so from a local perspective, within each market, there may be something unique. So from our tracking, we really wanted to see how we could layer in additional targeting, whether it's looking at even boomers, even though that's a little bit more of a tertiary audience, or specific millennials who are a little bit more into value-driven pricing or sort of value and health. So from a local perspective, had a little bit more of hyper-targeting with hyper-geolocalization. And what we found, again, with the Foursquare attribution was, National did their job, brought in probably 10% incremental visits, directly tied to their online video and their connected TV, FEP, all that stuff. And from our perspective, what we saw was we actually brought in an average between 38 and 48% incremental visits from what we did locally. So that was just a really good use case for us. We really also dialed it in, looked at Texas markets, looked at California markets, sort of big markets where we had a lot of data. And now we can use that in the future and apply it as needed, again, with a local and national interplay.
Very cool. Yeah, I think, and that's an interesting point about the kind of how you did the attribution and the tracking. This is a space, I mean, obviously when you're buying it programmatically, there's a lot of the bells and whistles that you get with, you know, purchasing through a DSP and buying it as if you would do another digital buy. But, you know, the fact that, I think, Meghan, you mentioned that some people are approaching this as we need to extend the TV buy, and that's a reality, is that not everybody's coming at this starting at the, you know, on the digital end. It's actually sometimes just an extension of what is going on in television, and so sometimes that makes the metrics a little tricky. Something Trisha and I were talking about yesterday is, you know, if you're working with the television team, are they asking you for the GRPs that you're getting within this buy to align with what they are doing from a, you know, broadcast or, you know, traditional television perspective? And I came into the space because I guess technically I purchased FEPs a long time ago at an agency because they ended up being part of a TV upfront buy. And it was like, oh, now we have to do this. And that was like the first time I remember something like this coming around. So have you guys dealt with anything like that, specifically having to align with a television group, or honestly just bring these two worlds together that have not been at all aligned in a very long time?
Yeah, so my background, 20 years in the ad space, but primarily started in digital. And the past 2 years really have, at Proof, taken the kind of management leadership on how do we figure out really just consumer touch points and try to be media agnostic. So at Proof, I'm trying to, you know, get everyone to think, if you're part of the media team, you're really part of the digital team. And we all need to learn together all the different ways the media industry has created, you know, currency, ways to, you know, buy things, way to look at, you know, cost per points, or, you know, cost per click, or even cost per visit now, you know, we're exploring with attribution modeling. So really just trying to educate everybody in the media department on what it means. But from our perspective, while we have that digital handle, we really are trying to think of consumers first. So it's interesting if you look at media and you think, oh, I'm buying TV because it's an advanced TV or connected TV because it's an extension of TV, traditional TV. We like to think of the consumers. There are people who are whatever you want to call it, cord nevers. You're never going to reach that consumer on TV. So it's not an extension. So we really look at the way consumers have new ways of entertaining themselves and consuming content, and try to create what we call experts within certain parts of how consumers get their media. So we might have, you know, identify key members of our team, and they're really looking at how even, you know, your Xbox or your game consoles are the only method that you're getting, quote, video or TV content. And then, of course, we already have a stable of traditional TV experts. And again, having experts, but then really aligning to consumers and not the media industry.
So I put it in categories a little bit more. So when I think about addressable, I think of it as an extension of a base buy, whether that be a traditional, national, or local linear buy. I see OTT as an extension of your digital video within a very brand-safe environment. And then when it comes to linear or addressable, programmatic or advanced TV, I actually view advanced TV as reaching a really niche audience. So when you buy advanced television on a national basis, you're not getting national inventory. You don't even know what DMAs that you're running in until it actually happens, right? Because it's on demand and it's based on what remnant inventory is out there based on the MVSPs. So if I would approach it and my client sat me at a table and said, what is our media mix? I need to know this now without taking into consideration so much of syndicated media research or media consumption patterns. I would take each one of those video elements and categorize them in those ways.
Cool. Did you?
No, I was just going to say, to your point of linear and extension and then years on audience, one thing that we keep in mind is the creative. So because OTT is an unskippable environment. That's where we push our linear creative spots. And kind of going back to the point of like the industry somewhat needs to change, because if you're watching CTV, then you're already a digital savvy person. We already know all the metrics of your second screen viewing already. So we need to keep in mind what creative is still going to ladder and tell your overarching message. So I think Pop Chip said it yesterday perfectly, of you still have your brand message and how does everything tie into it, and not just fragment out of like, okay, like, you know, this is your TV spot, this is your digital spot, this is your social spot, but then, you know, you have to remember that your consumer is going to see all these different spots. Does it all actually make sense to them when they watch your TV spot, and then when they see the 6 seconds in Snapchat? So that's where we try to keep this in mind and make sure that we have more retargeting in place, so more sequential messaging. We know that we'll use cross-bridging device where we know that they already saw something on their mobile device, so let's make sure that the next message they see is more storytelling versus just another spot, or, you know, just number 2 frequency, number 3 frequency.
I actually have a question on that. Since you spend a majority of your money on OTT and you're very conscious of frequency, I have a very difficult time monitoring that, especially within the Hulu world. I don't know if anybody's binged on Hulu before, but it's the same darn commercial over and over again. How do you kind of mitigate that?
We push Hulu to control our frequency, because we've actually had people comment on our Facebook page saying, like, I am so tired of seeing your spot. And we're like, we are trying to control this. At least, so now that we're pulling more within the DSP, we're not buying Hulu through a PMP yet, because it's so much more expensive to do the PMP. So we have to also balance the efficiency of things, but at least for within the DSP, we're getting more consistent reach frequency across the entire user. But yeah, for Hulu, we just try to just set our frequency caps.
Yeah, Hulu's working on it, I hear.
Yeah, so. I bet. Sorry.
Just a quick break to interact with the audience for a second, because let's just do that. It's early. So, how many of you guys would consider yourself a cord cutter or some variation of that? All right, cool. What was the, or just regular? Who's got regular cable still? Okay, so there's a good amount of overlap, which I think is interesting.
I still get Netflix in the mail.
Oh, yeah. They do that?
I still do.
She's like an OG up here.
Yeah, I write checks too.
She writes checks at the grocery store. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't find that. Are there any cord nevers in the house? Any cord nevers?
Oh, we got one.
I want to talk to you later, because that's really interesting. I think I'm a crossover. I'm in that overlap group of cable and I guess I cut some cord, but not all of it.
You fray the cord.
Right, I just watch it wherever I want to. Okay, so jumping back in, just about the creative piece. I think obviously knowing that this is sometimes part of or an extension of a television buy, but also part of a digital buy. You know, a lot of people take into consideration the channel mix and the media mix for how they're, you know, the type of content they're creating. And I think a little, you know, at least I can speak for me, when we decide what we're running on connected TV, we want it to be something that is, you know, television quality and something we could run on broadcast, even though we don't run that. What are some of the considerations you guys have about, you know, using this channel, the type of content, the creative quality in the mix that is best for each of the platforms, really, because they all have a slight, you know, variation if you're talking VOD versus maybe OTT.
For Texas tourism, again, represent, we won that account 6 months ago, so it's pretty new. That's great news, but the bad news was that the legislation actually reduced the budget by 2/3. So our working media dollars were really just 1/3 of what had been spent historically. And historically, there was the majority spent in just traditional primetime TV. So we really had to take a look at, how do we hit our goals still with reduced budgets. So we went all what we call at our shop advanced TV. And so for us, advanced TV really just means, and it also helps us align talent. If you're used to working in the space where tracking is a lot of your job versus, post buys and Nielsen, then we kind of move you into the advanced world where that's your comfort level. And advanced TV for us includes linear programmatic TV, which is national only. Can't do that geo. And then for us, anything that's kind of what we just defined to make it clearer, connected TV. So OTT, full episode players, all that. We just try to have a quick handle on, we call that connected TV, because somehow you're connected to the internet or some way to get that delivery. So that just makes it really easy for us. And then with creative, we don't have all the budgets in the world, but we knew that we could afford maybe 6 to 8 TV spots. And then what we do with the connected part was really try to align specific creative that we can target back to this millennial audience in these areas, this Gen X audience in this area, boomer audience in this area. So we only show specific creative with the connected TV world because we're able to. Then for programmatic linear TV, for us, we just identified kind of our core audience and figured out that creative mix. But what's really hard too is within budget is, we would love to do storytelling and iterations, but sometimes that just isn't feasible.
I would say from the creative standpoint, we typically use our national spots and run them across CTV, but CTV does open up inventory for long form video, so it is one spot that we like to get that more like mid-funnel video in there, and that's where using some targeting tactics, we'll know that you already saw a TV spot, so let's make sure we find inventory that has long form, whether it's on the home screen of your smart TV or looking for partnerships with Roku or creating more interactive ads within the CTV space. The problem with creating more, they're almost like rich media ads for CTV. Just users aren't used to engaging with TV yet. They're used to flipping through channels, but I think more remotes that have the push to talk is helping. Remotes just aren't user friendly. You can't God, we all know putting in our password takes 5 minutes just to log into Netflix. So let alone how you would engage with an ad. So I think there's a ton of opportunity to find more areas to insert creative within the CTV space, but at least long form is another opportunity for us outside of the 15s and 30s.
Yeah, I echo both of the ladies. Budget always is tough when it comes to production, but I think one thing that we've learned is developing multiple lengths individually, right? Not creating a 60-second hero spot and then taking that and developing 15s or 30s from that. It's actually approaching each ad length purposely. And the way, what Trisha said, with OTT you can run really long ads. We've been guilty of even 2-minute ads, and we got similar Facebook comments about that, so we learned. But what's so exciting is now we're in this 6-second world, right? I'm sure everybody watched the Super Bowl, and there were 6-second ads running. That is so exciting, but it also puts a lot of stress on production and creative development because you need to get it right when you don't have a lot of time.
I don't think anybody at my shop would accept a 6-second TV spot or a video spot.
Negotiation.
So as we're kind of looking at each different platform, I guess how do you kind of want to approach just the goals of the individual platform? So is, the measurement, obviously you're running video, but do the goals for the platform vary throughout the space? And how does that roll into the targeting and the measurement of those different platforms?
Yeah, so with OTT, it's great because it's purchased on a CPM, it's brand safe, and it's pretty much a reach vehicle using third-party data or first-party data. With advanced television, you're flying in the dark a little bit. And the way that we use it for that e-commerce client I was talking about earlier, one was brand awareness, and we were using an Ipsos study to measure that. And the second KPI, which was the real-time element, was visits to their website, whether it was a direct key in or through organic and paid search. And once they got there, the second KPI was engagement, which is what we call cost per non-bounce user, so CPMBU. And what that means is once a user lands on the home page, they have to go beyond one page, so 2+. So we had a pixel strategy with that. So we were able to find out through our TV conversion report how many households with that IP address cross-tab with TV manufacturer data actually visited our website after viewing an ad. So we saw there was a 20% lift. And then after that, we did a cross-tab of how our advanced TV actually had an effect on our programmatic display. And we saw a 3% increase in ROI based on our digital activations that came from our advanced TV efforts.
I'm not following that.
You're not following me?
I know, those are big shoes to fill. I mean, for us, we look at video completion rate. We don't have to. I would love to talk to you after how you how you track everything like that. Right now, we're for Las Vegas tourism. We're basically just getting people to the destination. Once people get to the destination, it's up to the properties to get them into its heads and beds. So for us, we're looking at more mobile device IDs, how many people saw an ad, track it back, and that's where we lean on a lot of cross-device technology to be able to do that. And once they get into the destination, then looking at different attribution models. Rarely do you have a brand that other people are also advertising for. So you've also got MGM, you've got Caesars. They're all pushing their consumers who have been there to come back to Vegas, as well as we're trying to promote Vegas. So when we do a lot of our advertising, it's brand metrics, it's brand lift, it's engagement. But then when it comes to the OTT space, as well as any addressable TV, it's primarily just looked at as a reach vehicle, and then for CTV we look at video completion rate. But like I said before, it's really hard to judge if it was really relevant when it's a forced view and your video completion rates are super high. We have looked at utilizing a partner where once our TV spot is served, then how many website visitations did we receive soon thereafter, which is helpful. But again, we try to keep people within whatever space they're on. So if they're within Facebook, we just want them to consume our video on Facebook and move on. We don't necessarily need people to be going back to our website. We just need to have people keep Las Vegas in mind when they're thinking about a vacation in the future. So
cool. I was going to say, I actually have a different question for you, because I think this is something you touched on, and I think it's a good point of, you talked about how your team is, your tradigital, I believe is the word. So, what is kind of an appropriate structure for kind of how to build a team around this space? Is it just, kind of bringing in the digital team and just expanding this into their overall landscape? Or is it, having a mix of the tradigital kind of background of a team? What is working? What do you think is the ideal structure for this?
I think our team is really reflective or mirrors kind of our client's scope of works and our client's media spend. So that's kind of how we really align the team. But, again, going back to, for us, especially with advanced TV or programmatic being a topic of conversation, what we find is if you're not familiar with having to really think about tracking and that kind of construct, in terms of media buying and kind of reporting back key measures, you're probably not as comfortable. So it's not that we don't want to educate, but we do. We kind of find the people who have the comfort level wherever they kind of reside. But it typically is, a team that has, or a team member that has experience with whatever you want to define as tracking beyond normal measures. And then from a tracking perspective, I will say that it's interesting for us, we definitely track all the media and creative measures, viewability, engagement, click-through rate. I hate click-through rate. But for us, we tend to try to tie back to business measures for our clients. Our name is Proof for two different reasons. Proof of concept, proof of the work, but also proof because of alcohol. And that's what fuels our creative thinking. But for us, you know, business metrics are really important for our clients, what we find. So the two examples I gave was really important for Subway, that we can show franchisees, as well as, again, just from a brand perspective, that people went into your store. If we don't have that month to month, we're in trouble. Same thing with Texas tourism. At the end of the day, it's tax collections on hotel. So what we try to look at is actual return on ad spend data. So there's a few ways that we do that for Texas, which is one, for things that can be tracked digitally. Again, it's a fractured world, but we tie into Adara impact, which allows us to see actual bookings through OTAs, hotels, airlines, and try to attribute it back to where that came from. And again, we could debate that, whether it's last click or first view. And we tend to look at first view. And then we have an independent research company that is really more qualitative, sort of Intercept, but that helps us back out on a monthly, annual, and 2-year basis trends for return on ad spend. So our key measures are always back to the business metrics.
That's very interesting. I think you guys have tracked and tracked and tracked. So that is awesome. No, I mean, I think it's really cool because, I mean, you think about the background of TV and forever it was how are we tracking it? How are we really measuring TV? And I think that's part of why this space is so exciting, because there's definitely people who have never been in the TV space, but like it or not, they are in it now because through this ecosystem. But it's a whole different world. And I actually started my career as a television buyer for multicultural. So I literally have kind of been on both sides, and I think for me personally, it actually is exciting to see like the evolution of these worlds that at one time would never ever cross, would never mesh. You sat on one side of the building if you were a TV buyer, and the internet people were on the other side. So I think that's what's so exciting about this space now, as people are consuming content differently too.
Yeah, and I think just technology is helping consumers consume content differently, but I also think that it's changing every aspect of media. So we're definitely testing and toying with programmatic radio and programmatic out of home. So it goes even beyond TV, and it's, I think, really exciting because the more technology helps advance everything, the more tracking is available.
Exactly.
And I'd also have to say, like, with the blurring of the lines now, it's you're no longer just TV, you're no longer just digital, because with CTV, I mean, it originally started within our digital department, but then it goes into the blurred lines of, well, technically, like, we originally saw it as a TV extension, so let's have the TV buyers come in, and now they want to report through Nielsen. So it's like really pushed the industry forward of now Nielsen is within the trade desk helping report on CTV, but the digital buyers don't know what Nielsen really should be looking like because we're only used to digital metrics. So I think just in the last 2 years, I want to say like everyone is starting to offer a CTV product in some capacity. So with more opportunity, with more products out there, then it just forces the agencies to be questioning and needing more people to just prove what's put out there and prove that it's actually working. So it's nice to see that there's a lot more solutions coming out from the measurement standpoint.
Cool. And just one quick question before we kind of take some audience questions. I think that's where we are in time. Okay. How do you see this space evolving? I mean, whether it's a hope and a dream, or like you actually have some background and some data to support it, some insight to report it. But what do you see as the future of this space if you had to kind of guess?
I have two hopes. Okay. The first one is that advanced TV actually becomes programmatic TV. So at this point, we still have humans who buy the TV inventory. It's not automated like it is within the programmatic world. I can't wait until that happens. The second one is this convergence between TV advertising and TV commerce, where soon we'll be able to shop on the big screen, whether it's through a remote that is interactive, that's a mouse, or something of that nature. I see that maybe occurring by next year.
I'd have to add on to that of the fact that it kind of baffles me that we have internet-enabled televisions and we're still just running this 15 and 30-second ad that you're able to act on it, but yet we're not taking advantage of it much. The other aspect is I want to see more measurement. I want to see this industry advance, but I really hope that these different TV manufacturers, as well as all of the different data providers, they make sure that they, from the privacy standpoint, I would hate to see what's happening in Europe right now start to happen here, because now it's really restricting any type of measurement. I mean, they're now going backwards instead of forwards because of people just taking advantage of privacy laws.
I think that just video, obviously it's a proven creative / media delivery system in terms of what we all produce together. And I think that video, just kind of that notion of video everywhere to me and technology is really exciting, because we're kind of experimenting. Even it's not as, doesn't have a lot of good data. You just kind of out there, you get impressions and whatnot. But just looking at Internet of Things and wearables, so consumers are always on the go, and then places where, whether it's your smart TV or you walk into a store that's technology driven, just if there's a screen and you can show a video, how does that even start to connect? So we talk about second screen or third screen, but really there's potentially 7 to 10 additional screens that we can look at, different touch points. So I find that very exciting. It's in its infancy, but that's my hope and dream.
Those are all great hopes, and I think that honestly, I think a lot of them are definitely can be realities. I mean, this space is growing by the day, and more people are expecting more from it. So I think it has a lot in its future, if you will. So audience questions?
Yeah, let's get some questions.
Hi, Kristen Livesay from Takeda Pharmaceuticals out of Chicago. So we're still kind of old school, and I think a lot of that's probably scale and efficiency and a lot of habit. So a couple of questions. I think, is the scale there, in the new TV? And do you think that if, yes and no, does the targeting kind of help outweigh that? And if so, what about cost? Is the cost potentially outweighing that when you're looking at efficiency?
Yeah, so from the cost standpoint, I think it's great for clients that don't have a ton of ad budget. It's a great opportunity to get on a TV screen. It's premium. It's a premium spot. It's a premium position. So from that standpoint, it's still lower CPMs. However, they're quickly increasing because everyone's starting to catch on that it's a great place to be. It's efficient. It's great from the brand safety standpoint. You're able to cherry pick and figure out where exactly you want to be, as well as it's best of both worlds. You've got that TV screen, but then you can layer on and find, and it's a zero waste environment. Now that you can layer on retargeting and third party targeting, then you can really hone in on that household, on that individual, and create more of that one-to-one messaging that we've all been talking about throughout the conference.
Scale is extremely difficult on addressable TV. So if you have an 8-week campaign, you'll probably spend the majority of your budget in the last 3 weeks. So my advice is to recognize that and make sure you're not running offer-based creative. OTT is becoming super popular too, so that is a little lead time, a big lead time. And you're allowed to buy that based on a share of voice model. So I would work with your operations or salesperson on that. Typically, we look between 5 to 10%. When it comes to targeting, third-party data is terrible. Everybody's using it, right? So I would urge you to leverage first-party data any way that you can, because you won't spend as much, you'll eliminate waste, and you'll reach the right people.
And just to add on, so I think going into like quality, so you can go and find and vet your third-party data. Don't just take it as face value. And I mean, you need to reach out to those data providers, whether it's Oracle, find the last time that data was refreshed, find exactly what their methodology was for figuring that out. And then also we speak directly to the SSPs. So yes, like we can just tap into our DSP and click CTV. However, we look at the SSP level, and we want to make sure that the inventory we're receiving is also the best inventory from the supply side.
I think the scale question goes still back to what the brand is and who your audience is. So if you're fine with, just hitting everybody, and you're fine with that waste, but you're probably most likely going to hit your audience because it indexes XYZ, then I think that, again, it's how you define advanced TV. But for us, programmatic TV, if you also don't mind national, then that can be affordable and at scale, but you can't pick programming. So let's just say you're travel and you really want a travel channel, and you can't just isolate and pick that. But you can pick a travel-minded audience based off of, credit card data, or again, other different metrics. Or if you're really looking at geo and audience, and you really want that niche, you are limiting your scale. And there's different ways to look at that with connected.
Yeah, I was gonna say real quick too, just to add, this is a new space we're in. We just got into the advanced TV space. We started with connected television, and we're buying it programmatically using first-party data. And our trade desk, it was came very straightforward with us to say that there is scale issues with first-party, but we'd rather go about it and say, like, we just know that this is our audience and this is our target, and have smaller scale than try to kind of boil the ocean and just go big. So I mean, I can relate in that, being new to it and just trying to figure out how to start and like where to kind of first plant that seed. So that's how we've done it. Go ahead.
I'm Kristen Kopp. I'm from ClearLink in Salt Lake. My question is, so I definitely have a more digital background, and just wondering what kind of resources you can recommend to learn more about the traditional side to be able to bridge those gaps and talk better with the other side, if you will.
In terms of resources, I am a huge eMarketer fan. Same thing with WARC, W-A-R-C, is a great subscription to have. Or Lynda is also another great resource. I mean, they all come with a nice little price tag, but you can always ask for a test run for a nominal fee. So I urge you to do that versus buy the whole thing.
For my agency, so I don't know a lick of TV. Like acronym, I literally tell our TV buyers, like, I know you're speaking English, but it sounds like Greek. Like, but I know CTV, so her and I have buddied up, and I'm helping her with the CTV space, and she's then translating and helping me with the TV space to see, like, well, what does she think about when I talk about impressions, and then I boil it down to, like, what I would see success as, and I mean, we just share each other's information from that standpoint.
If I heard the question right, you're more digital and you're wanting to understand the traditional vernacular. I mean, there's a lot of Media 101 decks out there, so just Google that and at least read it, and it'll give you a good idea of what GRPs are versus, cost per points, all that good stuff. But I'm going to give a shout out to the Goodway group here. They actually have a great tool that's online that can help, again, you use it directionally or, don't put all stake in it, but it's a great tool to actually input impressions, and it'll, give you the translation and vice versa. So it's a great kind of just cheat sheet to toggle back and forth and kind of express kind of the total view in one number, and you can pick and choose which way you go.
Meghan, Trisha, Lee, I think you've just demonstrated why we need more all